Hey, it's Carlos GGS, Guitar God's Secrets, and what I'm going to show you today is some tricks and nuances to tuning your guitar that most guitarists never learn. Okay, this is some pretty arcane stuff I'm going to be showing you. I mean, for some of you, who knows? You might know it, you might not, but this is very different than what most guitar teachers show their students. Now, the typical way people learn how to tune a guitar is the whole 5th fret thing, right? You go across 5th fret. When you get to the G string, you change to the 4th fret. This is known as tuning in fourths, with the exception of the B string, which is actually tuned slightly different. Okay, Carlos, this isn't anything new, right? Well, first of all, I'm going to warn you about some things that will happen psychologically. Remember, I also teach you how to think about how you play guitar, not just how to play guitar. A lot of guys get used to this 4th fret anomaly of the G string. And if you've looked at my other programs and other information, you probably know how I view the guitar. It's not a 6-string instrument. It's 3 sets of 2 strings. But what guys will do is they'll see this G string 4th fret tuning thing, and you get so used to tuning with your finger on that 4th fret that you start to think that the G string is the one that's different. That's the different one because I put my finger on the 4th string when I'm tuning. Psychologically, what this does to you is it makes you think that there's something going on with the G string when in fact there isn't. The first 4 strings are pretty much, if you can keep this straight in your head, identical in a lot of ways. It's the last 2 strings that are shifted up 1 fret. Alright, so that's just a little bit of a weird psychological thing, but what about the whole tuning thing, right? Well, the tuning thing is that, of course, we tune this way because it's one of the standard ways you learn, but you also probably have learned other ways, like the harmonic version, which is 5th fret and 7th fret. The harmonic here on the E string with the harmonic on the A string at the 7th fret. And they should be the same, right? Now you're hearing a little bit of interference, a little bit of wah, 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 a little bit of oscillation there in my sound because I'm playing in a high gain setting, okay? A lot of distortion. And this is actually to illustrate a point because playing clean, you don't notice a lot of these little things. The 5th fret harmonic tuning thing is actually perfectly fine for acoustic guitars and electric guitars, but it's not quite right. And there's a reason for this, and it has to do with how we tune and how we tune an instrument and the difference between the frets and the length of the string, because we make the sound by, of course, shortening the length of the string. That's what we're doing when we put our fingers on the frets. When it comes to those harmonics, though, it's okay to do it that way, but an even better way is to turn what I call a tune internally to the guitar. Okay? If your intonation is set correctly on your guitar, and if you don't know what intonation is, that's simply the setting up of the length of the strings relative to the neck so that everything is in key and everything is actually works all the way up and down the fingerboard. You need to get that done, first of all. If you don't know how to do it, I'm sure there's plenty of videos, and I will actually create one myself to show you how to do this later on. But you got to make sure your guitar is intoned correctly. The intonation has to be correct. Once that's set, though, now internally your guitar should be able to be tuned to its own chords. And that's the way you should, because you're going to be playing music. You're not going to be playing 5th and 7th string harmonics throughout an entire song. You're not going to be playing 5th string like that, okay? When you play a chord, you should hear relatively little difference in or wobbly oscillations in the difference in the tones in the chord. It should sound good as a whole, not just individual string wise. It's a very important concept and not a lot of guitarists realize. So when you're tuning, another way you can do it is if you're on a high gain setting or if you play high gain like I typically do, you want to try tuning with your fourths of chords. Fourths meaning barring 2 strings across, with the exception, of course, of the G and B strings. But you tune by holding down the 2 strings at the same time. You hear how that was pretty clean, pretty close? I'm going to detune a little bit so you can hear the difference if it's not in tune. Hear that wah, 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 wah. That little difference in tone, that little oscillation, is a difference between the sound waves and where they're intersecting. If they're intersecting nicely on a good interval, meaning that they match up nicely on regular beats or regular wavelengths, they'll sound together. That sounds good, doesn't it? that's how you can tune your guitar all the way across. I could tune with a power chord, I could tune with a G chord, but I just do it with fourths all the way across. All the way up the neck. It sounds beautiful because, first of all, the guitar is intoned correctly, but second of all, because I just tuned using chords, not relative to the 5th fret or the harmonics or any number of other ways you might actually tune a guitar. So I think you probably get the difference there and see the difference. Now, if you're playing at a high gain setting, this is real easy because distortion creates a certain waveform, a certain characteristic to the sound that allows you to hear these little differences in frequencies very clearly. Clean, not so much, but you can still do it. You can still do it. As a matter of fact, I actually encourage you to switch from high gain to clean whenever possible so you can hear the differences and how that works. Because when you're playing with clean tone, you have to have a much more sensitive ear. You got to be able to pick up these little differences. So there you go, a different way of tuning that will actually be much more accurate. Even if your guitar isn't intoned correctly, it's a better way to tune because it's going to make your chords sound correct and it's going to make your guitar sound correct throughout your entire song. Even if somehow it works out that your low E string isn't quite on the right perfect frequency. That's just a characteristic of intonation, and you can fix that almost any time. Tune by using fourths instead of your usual harmonics or 5th fret version. This is Carlos. If you enjoyed this at all, or if you have any questions or comments, just leave a comment below the video. I'd love to hear from you. I'm going to be doing more videos like this on the obscure and arcane world of Guitar God secrets.